Synthwave is a music genre that, in theory, shouldn't be very nostalgic for me, mainly because, stylistically, it glorifies the retro aesthetics of 1980s pop culture, such as its music, movies, and video games. I never had any meaningful experiences with the mediums of that decade, seeing as I was born in the 2000s, and I never really grew up playing an NES or listening to the synthesizer-heavy pop songs that dominated the charts during that time. There is, however, an exception to that rule. You see, 7 years ago, on the 1st of July of 2014, an album was released on a Midwest collective label which not only made me look at the genre in a different way, but also became my favorite album of all time and opened the door for me to discover the fascinating world of electronic music. That album is Odyssey by Home. Odyssey is Home's second album, being released after his 2013 debut, The Atlantic Tapes. It contains 12 tracks, all of which range from being 3 to 5 minutes in length, with the exception being its titular track, which is over 6 minutes. The album was also pressed on vinyl twice, in 2016 and 2017 by the Eyewitness Records label, known as Screen Grow Records at the time, and both pressings sold out almost immediately and can now go for up to $600 on sites like Discogs. And, while it's unfortunate to see because it'd be great to own a physical copy of this LP, I guess it's for a good reason since this album is really good. To start, Odyssey's sound was groundbreaking at the time of its release due to the fact that it generally didn't sound like any other synthwave album that came before it. This is due to this album's seamless mix of both synthwave and chillwave, taking influence from other genres like downtempo and ambient music to give it its warm and lo-fi sound. It has even gone on to be wrongly classified by some people as vaporwave because of this. Odyssey was so influential that it even went on to inspire a new generation of synthwave artists such as Allison and Admo that would go on to adopt Home's style, developing a new microgenre in the synthwave scene that would go on to be known as chillsynth. And it makes sense due to the fact that Odyssey's production is absolutely breathtaking. From the plucky chiptune sounds of its intro, all the way to the lush synthesizers of its outro on the way out. And due to all of this, Odyssey is an album that is packed with atmosphere and emotion. It has this cosmic sound to it which makes me imagine being in outer space, exploring the cosmos and looking at all of the shimmering stars and vibrant galaxies that I would never have the chance to see here on Earth. Which makes a lot of sense in my opinion, seeing as this album's aesthetics are heavily influenced by space. Take the name of the fourth song on the album, Oort Cloud, as an example of this. In astronomy, the Oort cloud is said to be a cloud of icy objects which surrounds the sun at approximately 0.03 to 3.2 light years. The album cover, made by Joblove Productions, also captures that same vibe as well, with it containing what look to be 3 scientists sat around a cube of old technology. It reminds me a lot of an old NASA documentary I found on YouTube, which showcases the machinery that they had during the 70s, and I could easily imagine that the album cover was ripped straight from that time period. I also quickly want to talk about the titular song of the album, which, in my opinion, perfectly captures that otherworldly sound, making me feel as if I'm going through an epic journey through space in a neon-colored spaceship. From the orchestral strings that introduce the song all the way to its somewhat uncertain sounding conclusion, as well as all the funky synthwave jams in between. In terms of the album's emotions, I would best describe Odyssey as having a bittersweet sound, with a lot of the songs on here varying between uplifting and somewhat melancholic moods. Take the penultimate song on the album, Half Moon, as an example of this. The song has a very hazy sound to it, giving it a somewhat moody and meditative sound in contrast to the rest of the LP. Going back to the space imagery, it gives me the feeling of flying off into space, looking down at the Earth which I once considered to be my home for what could be the last time, or landing in a completely desolate and unknown planet, not knowing what potential dangers lie ahead. On the contrary, you have songs like Tides, Oort Cloud, and Native that have this very warm and exhilarating sound to them, with their mixture of soft synth pads and retro sounds and melodies, reminding me of old NES games like Super Mario Bros. Or Kirby's Adventure that contain these very vibrant and colorful worlds that put a smile on my face every time I see them. And in the middle of these two emotions, sadness and happiness, you have songs that have a more mellow sound to them, like Come Back Down. This song, in general, is very calm, reminding me of late summer nights, with it having these synths that sound like crickets chirping in the background. It's a great track to just sit down and relax to, in my opinion. So as of now, we've discussed a lot of topics related to this album, from its history to its emotions and its atmosphere. There's one more topic though, one that I lightly mentioned at the beginning of the video that I feel that I need to discuss in greater detail if I'm truly going to do this album justice. Nostalgia is an interesting thing. We usually get this feeling of longing for the simplicity of the past from things such as movies, video games, and in this case, from music that were important parts of our formative years. Because of this, nostalgia, like most things in general, varies greatly from person to person, seeing as we all have lived different lives and have grown up in different environments. Let's take the song Sweden, from the Minecraft soundtrack as an example of this. If you played the song to someone who has never heard of or played Minecraft before, or to someone who played the game without the music on, they'll probably comment on the fact that it's a very pretty ambient classical piece, more than likely thinking that it was made by some impressionist composer like Eric Satie or Claude Debussy, rather than by the C418 person. But if you were to play it to someone who has played Minecraft in the past, especially during their childhood, they would more than likely touch on the experiences they've had with the song playing quietly in the background of the game, whether it's building your first ever dirt hut on your first day of survival, messing around with mods, or building massive structures with friends. You only have to look at the comment sections of free uploads of the song to see this. But oddly enough, there's something different about this album regarding its nostalgia. Rather than being nostalgic because of the experiences I've had with it, as in the case with the Minecraft soundtrack, this album just sounds nostalgic for me, like the soundtrack to my childhood experiences which I had long ago. Resonance is a prime example of this, with its beautiful and soothing synth grooves. It, as well as the rest of the album, takes me back to simpler times in my life, playing those old plug-and-play games and watching cartoons on my mom's old television, or playing flash games with my friends with the computers in the library in my middle school, all without a care in the world. It even takes me back to the 2016 era of the internet, back when I, like most people, was introduced to home via the Electronic Gems channel and their re-upload of Resonance, with the cover of Michael Stern's 1991 space ambient album Encounter, A Journey in the Key of Space in the background. Back when the things people used to worry about the most were what Pokemon they got on Pokemon Go, or whether or not those Harambe and Dat Boy memes that people used to post all the time were still funny. I would even go as far to say that this album gives me a feeling of what I like to call imaginary nostalgia. That same feeling of longing for the past, but this time for a past I wasn't even thinking about being born in. It's cliche, I know, but please bear with me. This is a feeling a lot of albums try and capture, including most Synthwave releases, but for me, none of them do it quite as well as this one. Songs like the previously mentioned Tides, Ord Cloud, and Resonance, as well as the third song on the album Decay, make me feel as if I'm a kid in the late 80s playing Mega Man 2 on an old CRT television during the late hours of the night. And it seems that this magical feeling of artificial nostalgia has been felt by many other people who've listened to this album as well. You only have to lightly read the comment sections on uploads of each of the songs on this album, and look at the visuals that people use to accompany them to see this. And the fact that this album can pull on my and so many other people's heartstrings while sounding as if it were effortlessly made is truly impressive. And it's these feelings of nostalgia, as well as all of the other things that I've previously mentioned in this video, that make Odyssey my favorite album of all time. Whenever I listen to it, it transports me to ever-changing times and locations, from retrofuturistic spaceships all the way to the most blissful times in my youth that leave me almost in a trance-like state regardless of whatever I'm doing whilst listening to this album. It's truly a wonderful feeling, one that, once again, no other piece of music has come even close to achieving for me, at least on the scale of this one. After Odyssey, Home went on to release 3 more albums and 1 EP. and while they're all superb synthwave releases that I definitely recommend you check out, none of them had quite the impact on me that Odyssey has had. From start to finish, it's an impeccable album that has been very significant in my life, accompanying me through a lot of things, from long study sessions to simply just playing the games that I enjoy. And without it, I probably wouldn't be where I am today. So thank you, Home, for making this album and for all the memories that I have made and those that I will make with it in the future. Here's to more fantastic releases from you.